New York Giants fans, it's finally over. The season is a wrap. And while I know many people are relieved because it wasn't a great year for the Giants, I can't help but be sad, right? Because the end of the Giants season means that it's almost the end of the football season as a total. But you now know where the Giants sit. Number 3 overall draft pick. That means that they either are going to have the opportunity to draft their franchise quarterback or the best player in the draft. How are you feeling? I know how I'm feeling. I want to talk about it right now. I'm Coach Gene Clemons, and I have a giant issue. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of A Giant Issue, New York Giants on SI. That's where you're going to find all of your New York Giants news and information. And as we start to get into the offseason, that is where you're going to want to go to get all of the updates, all of the information, all of the things that you want to know about the regime and whether or not they'll be back or if they're gone. And if they're gone, then who's going to be new, about the roster moves, who's back, who's not, who's leaving via free agency, who's going to be, if anybody is going to get the franchise tag, on what happens to the guys that you've come to cheer for, that you might want to see gone, that you never wanted to see leave. What happens to them all? You're going to want to go to New York Giants on SI and do that. But with all that being said, I want to first start off by saying thank you to everybody that's gotten us to 2,000 subscribers. You know me. Every time I've been on here, I've been talking about, hey, we want to get to 2,000. We want to get to 2,000. We want to get to 2,000. Well, guess what? We're at 2,000. In fact, we are at 2,005. And so you know what that means. The march for 3,000 starts right now. I told you guys it was coming. We are at 2,005. And thank you to everybody who has subscribed. Thank you to all of the people who said, hey, I've enjoyed this. This is my favorite podcast now. I'm locked in. Thank you to all of the people who have commented. Thank you to all of the people who have commented and haven't agreed, right? We don't have to always agree in order to have good discourse. So it was nice to see that, not only are you guys jumping on to be subscribers, but you're also like watching, and you're watching for long periods of time. The last video, my last podcast, well over 1,000 views now. And then on top of being over 1,000 views, what's more important to me, you guys are not just clicking on it, but you're actually listening. You're actually watching what goes on. View duration 14 minutes long, which means that you are watching over 40% of the pod on average. Shout out to all the people who are listening on Spotify, who are listening on Apple Podcasts. I'm saying this stuff now because as we move into the off season, it's a different part, right? And so some of you are going to, wonder, well, should I still listen to Coach Gene because, like, the season's over with? Well, let me tell you, once we get to this offseason, now we're in my bag. Player evaluations, looking at roster building, roster management. I don't particularly get too much into salaries and salary cap because my job, my thought process is there's someone's job to do that, and that's not my job. My job is to tell you whether or not the talents are worth it and how the talents fit with the schemes that are going on. And I look forward to being able to do more of that with you. I look forward to expanding and giving you a lot more in this universe that is a giant issue. But we saw this final game, and I know after last week, a lot of people were like, oh, these people can't tank, right? These people can't do this. I just want to tell y'all something because we know that the Giants lost. They lost to Philadelphia, with Philadelphia playing most, if not all, of their backups most of the game. There were starters out there for the Giants, but there were a lot of backups out there. And last week my last pod, I had people commenting saying, hey, can we now stop the notion that the Giants were tanking? I want you all to understand how tanking works. From my perspective, when we look at tanking, this is how tanking works. I am trying to lose, but I can't say that I'm trying to lose. I can't make it seem as if I'm trying to lose, because that's not, in this era of competitive balance, that wouldn't be fair, right? So I have to make it look as if I'm trying to win while losing. All of that happens within the margins. It's not like there were some people who said, hey, we should bench all the starters the same way that Philadelphia is benching all the starters. But Philadelphia is benching all of their starters for a goal that's achievable this year. The Giants would just be benching all of their starters to hustle a system that's in place to reward the worst team, not to reward the team that understands how to hustle the best, right? So keep this in mind. The Giants are a better team than the Browns. I know you guys don't want to admit it, because you want to say that the Giants are the worst team in the NFL, but they're not. They're a better team than the Browns. The Giants are a better team than the Titans. I know you don't want to admit it, but that's the truth, right? Those two teams are further away from winning than you are. You should be excited about that, but you won't be. You're going to be saddened, because you're like, that's not true. The Giants, the Browns are only a quarterback away from blah, 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 blah. Nope, that's not the truth. The Browns have a lot of issues. It's not just quarterback. The Titans have a lot of issues. It's not just quarterback. The same way that the Giants have a lot of issues, it's not just quarterback. All of those teams, by the way, Giants included, are a quarterback away from being teams who can push for the playoffs. But they need more than that. So, like, when you're tanking, you had to understand that over the last 12 games, right? We've got the 10 game losing streak, and then these last two games. Over that 10 game losing streak, that was not the team trying to tank the entire time. From Daniel Jones being benched and then subsequently released, they were trying to tank. And I want you to notice what happened once Daniel Jones got benched. The offense got more aggressive. Oh, well, how does that happen? Because you just said that they were trying to, which means they started going for fourth downs going forward on fourth downs way more than they were earlier on with Daniel Jones, right? They were being more aggressive with trying to score. Why? Because if I get it, then yay, right? Yay, we're doing well. But if I don't get it, then we lose, and now we're in a better position to pick. It was always a long shot to pick number one overall. Why? Because these other teams had strength of schedules that were going to lead them to the number one pick over the Giants. So the only way that the Giants were going to get the number one pick is for the Giants to lose 12 straight games. It's actually pretty hard to do, right? It's actually pretty hard to do. And then it was a perfect storm last week when they beat the Colts, and they still almost lost. That tells you that they were trying to tank. The players are never trying to tank. I know I joked and said that Drew Lock was in on it, but like, Drew Lock isn't in on it. He's just not that great, but he has talent. So if he is clicking, it's going to look like it looked last week. Ta-da! But now we're here, the third pick. And I'm going to tell you, for me, this is how I look at the third pick. I already talked about it. When you look at the Browns and the Titans, right? The Titans have the number 1 pick. They 100% should take a quarterback. If you're asking me what quarterback they should take, it should be Cam Ward, because Cam Ward is going to fit more schematically what they want to do there. And Tennessee not being a glamour market, he doesn't have to worry about like dealing with the pressures of a big market, right? That leaves the Browns. The Browns should take Shedeur Sanders because Shedeur Sanders is the best quarterback prospect in this class. And like I've said before, I think is one of the best, is one of the most pro-ready prospects to come out in the past 20 years. If not 2010 for sure. And by the way, a bunch of people they got on me about it. Like, oh, well, what about this? What about that? Like, you don't understand what I mean by pro-ready, then you don't understand. But cool. I'm going to explain it right now. Shedeur Sanders is the most pro-ready quarterback to come out in quite some time. I don't even think it's close. Here's why. What are the things that will get in the way of the development of a pro quarterback? The lights, right? Meaning the fame, the money, right? And not being used to playing on teams that are not fully set up for success. Those 3 things will get in the way of a quarterback. Well, Shedeur Sanders has been famous his entire life. Why? Because his father has been famous as his entire life. Shedeur Sanders has been on TV with his father through their reality shows. Shedeur Sanders' entire life has played out in front of the camera via social media and YouTube videos and other things where millions upon millions of people have had eyes on him. He has millions of followers. They're all of the different videos and channels that people have that focus on Shedeur has gotten millions upon millions of views. Shedeur Sanders already makes millions of dollars. So he's not going to come into the NFL and be shocked by what's going on in the NFL. And lastly, he's played on teams, first at Jackson and then secondly in Colorado, that were not ready-made, well-oiled machines that he took over. And now he has to come to the NFL where it may not be perfect and he doesn't know how to deal with it. He already knows how to deal with not having a really good offensive line. He already knows how to deal with talented wide receivers that might want the ball and are going to be demonstrative about it. He already knows how to deal with the media. Once again, he's been in the spotlight his entire life. No other quarterback has a profile that can say that. Not one. Not this year, not last year, not the past 10 years, maybe not the past 20 years, maybe not since the Manning brothers has a quarterback come into the league with an understanding of what needs to be done in order to be successful at the position in the league. There you go. So I look at these things differently, right? So the Browns need a quarterback. The Titans need a quarterback. But if one of those 2 teams decide that they don't want to take a quarterback, that they want to take the best player available, which is the Travis Hunter, that means that the Giants are going to have a pick of either Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. I am on record as saying either one of them, sign me up for it. They're good. They bring different elements, but both of them have really high ceilings, really high floors, right? I think the idea about some of this is that these people are like maxed out, but they're not. They're going to have higher floors because they played a lot of college football, but they have high ceilings because they still have so much that they can work on to get better at. The idea of what's coming around, by the way, these new things of, well, Shadur Sanders isn't that good, Cam Ward isn't that great. These are the same people that tried to tell you, right? They tried to tell you that Jaden Daniels wasn't good. They tried to tell you that Michael Penix wasn't good. These are the same people. They don't know what they're talking about. These are the same people that told you that Joe Milton wasn't worth a developmental pick on day 3. I said that Joe Milton should be a guy that the Giants looked at on day 3 as a developmental pick. Guess what would have been happening when, DJ went down, or when DJ, they decided to move on from DJ? You could have gone to Joe Milton. You know what Joe Milton did today? Put on a show. Bazooka Joe, as I like to call him. So now the Giants are in a position where when they get there, if 1 and 2 has taken a quarterback, then they should, right? They should either draft Hunter, right? Draft Hunter, because you need a cornerback, but you also need another wide receiver. You kill 2 birds with 1 stone, right? He becomes your 3rd wide receiver because you have Neighbors and you have Wan'Dale Robinson. He becomes your 3rd wide receiver in the fact that you don't have to play him, every snap at wide receiver. But he's a weapon, right? He knows how to get open. You better give him more targets than you gave Darius Slayton. I don't really know what Darius Slayton did to anyone, but we'll talk about it. We'll talk about that probably tomorrow. But you take him. You either take him or you trade that pick for a haul that needs to include an extra 1st-round pick next year. So you get whatever somebody wants to trade you for a 1st-round pick this year and a 1st-round pick next year. Or you don't trade. None of this, we'll give you the pick this year and then a 2nd in 2025. No. You need to pick this year, another pick this year, and a 1st-round pick in 2025 in 2026, because you want to go into 2026 with 2 1st-round draft picks. Why? You want to give yourself more flexibility. This is where the Bears screwed up at, right? They thought they had found their guy, and even though they already had a dude in place that could be the dude, they thought they had found their guy, so they took the guy. Then they took a wide receiver to go with them instead of trading one of the picks and then continuing to pick up 1st-round draft picks for next year. I digress. So you're either going to take the best player available, you're going to take one of the 2 quarterbacks, or you're going to trade down. Ladies and gentlemen, nothing has changed from them having the 1st pick to them having the 3rd pick. Here's what was going to happen at the 1st pick. People were going to say you either had to take Shadur, Cam Ward, or trade the pick down to get more picks, right? So at the 3rd pick, you're either going to get Shadur or Cam Ward, or you're going to trade down for more picks, or the best player available, by the way, or trade down for more picks. So everything is still right there in front of you. You don't have to change anything. You don't have to look at anything differently. You have to scout the top 3, 5 at every position the same way, because with the 3rd pick, because of who has the 1st and the 2nd pick, everything is still there for you. The Browns, it's not just cut and clear that they're going to take a quarterback. Why? Because they have a ridiculous amount of money already put up in Deshaun Watson. That money is guaranteed. The cap hit on it is ridiculous. They've got to try to make it work with him. Now, does that mean they won't take a guy and say, well, if it doesn't work for him, now we've got our guy for the future? Of course it doesn't mean that. But that's not the very best use of a 1st-round draft pick if you've got a guy that you still owe $100+ million to, right at the position. So if they don't take a guy, if they don't take a quarterback, then they probably want to take the best player available, which could be an edge rusher, it could be a D tackle, it could be another offensive lineman, it could be Travis Hunter. That's going to drop a quarterback into your lap. If they trade away, right? If they trade away because the Giants are third, that means that whomever they're trading with has to have enough draft capital that they're willing to part with in order to make it worth it. Well, nobody that is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, none of them are going to have enough draft capital in order to move up for a quarterback. And most of them don't need quarterbacks. Congratulations, Giants. You're probably going to get a quarterback. And if you don't, then you are going to have your pick of every single best player in the world, right? You're going to have your pick of every single best player in the world outside of Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. Because the only way you don't take Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward is if they're gone with 1 and 2. That's a pretty darn good place to be. So there's a lot of company to be kept there. There's a lot of things to be done with that third pick. And as I talk, we're already starting to see the fallout, right? The Patriots won today, right? So that dropped them out of the top 3 discussion. And the Patriots fired Gerard Mayo after 1 year with the team. Do the Patriots sound like a stable organization to you? Your team is better than the Patriots. It's crazy to say, right? But the Giants are better than the Patriots because firing a head coach after 1 year, after the program has been run into the ground from the dysfunction on the top, then allow him to take over, strap him with a rookie quarterback, say you're not going to allow him to start from the beginning, take some L's, then he comes in, doesn't prepare well, then you bench him for the final game, which I guarantee you it was not a Gerard Mayo decision. And then the guy that they drafted as another rookie quarterback goes out there and performs well against a team that's sitting everybody because they've got nothing to play for. It's terrible over there. It's terrible in New England. It's terrible in New Orleans. It's terrible in Cleveland. It's terrible in Tennessee. It's terrible with the Jets. It's terrible in Las Vegas. I know that it might seem as if the New York Giants have the worst team in the NFL, but I promise you that's not the case. I promise you there's more dysfunction other places. And whether or not they bring this regime back or they let this regime go, this position, this team, this organization is set up to have a turnaround that will make somebody coach of the year next year. It'll either be the coach of the year or GM of the year that's already in place, or it'll be a new coach and a new GM that comes in place next year. That is how bullish I am on the potential of this team. All you have to do is make the right decisions this offseason. That's all. Just make the right decisions this offseason. And in certain respects, don't overthink it. Don't overthink it, because overthinking it is going to put you in a position to reach where you don't have to reach. It's going to put you in a position to think that someone may not be worth what they really are. And that'll be to the detriment of this team and of whomever is in that front office and coaching staff. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to talk about it. Now, I will tell you, these next few days, it's going to get a little grim. I plan to come to you and tell you my thoughts about the head coach and GM on Black Monday. Whether I think they should go, whether I think they should stay. If news comes out that they're gone or that they stay, then I'll come to you and tell you whether I agree or disagree. Right? And then we're going to do a little look back on some of the biggest disappointments, some of the biggest accomplishments of the 2024 season before we finally turn our attention to 2025. That's what this coming week will look like on a giant issue. I hope you join me as we start to transition into the off season. I know the music's not the same with the intro, but I wanted to put some music there. Once again, having some issues with YouTube that keeps on trying to ban or flag or stop the monetization on my videos, which I just can't have happening. You know how it goes, right? So until we figure that out, get a new jingle, this is what we'll roll with. I'm really looking forward to it. I know that a lot of people want to be sad right now, but that's just not me. I think there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of hope in this team. And I hope that once you're able to digest everything from this season, I hope that you can get to a point where you can see the hope like I see the hope. Or else just lean on me to try to get that energy and put that battery back in your back. Until next time, I'm Coach Gene Clemons, and I have a giant issue.